All right, everybody, welcome back. You ready to really dig into something interesting?
Yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Me too.
Yeah,
Um, Today we're going to be looking at something that I think affects a lot of people. A
definitely.
lot of people struggle with this idea
Oh, for sure.
of being afraid of awkward moments when you're speaking.
Yeah, especially when you're speaking professionally.
Right, like on stage or in front of a client or in a meeting.
Like when you're trying to make a good impression.
Yeah, exactly. Or just in any situation where the stakes are kind of high.
Yeah, you don't want to mess up.
They're right. So the source material we're looking at today is called Progress Over Perfection. Embracing the awkward moments on the path to becoming a stronger professional speaker.
That's a mouthful.
It is,
Yeah.
but I think the title kind of gives you a good idea of what we're going to be talking about.
For sure.
It's this idea of not being so afraid of those awkward moments.
Right, because they're going to happen.
Exactly.
Like you're not going to be perfect every time you speak. So how do you deal with those moments when they happen?
Right, how do you not let them completely derail you?
And how can you maybe even use them to your advantage?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool angle.
Yeah, because I feel like we're always told to avoid awkwardness at all costs.
Right, just like pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah, let's just smooth it over and move on.
But this is saying like maybe there's a different way to approach it.
Yeah, maybe there's something to be learned from those moments.
Exactly.
So in the excerpt, they talk about this guy named David.
Oh, yeah, I remember David.
So David, when he first started out public speaking, he was really struggling.
Oh, yeah, he was.
He would get up there and he would pour his heart out.
He was so passionate.
Yeah, and people would just be like,
Crickets.
crickets, total silence.
Nobody knew what to say.
And he even got some pretty harsh feedback early on.
Yeah, some people were not very nice.
No, they weren't. And I mean, I think it would have been really easy for him to just give up at that point.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like, who needs that?
Right. But he didn't. And I think that's what's so inspiring about his story.
Well, I think what kept him going was that he had a message that he really wanted to share.
He had something important to say.
And he knew that if he could just figure out how to connect with people,
Right.
then he could make a difference.
So what did he do? How did he start to turn things around?
So one of the things he did was he realized that, like, he was trying to fix everything at once.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that was just, like, overwhelming him.
Yeah.
So he decided to just focus on, like, one small thing at a time.
Okay.
And one of the first things he worked on was his pacing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so he had a tendency to speak really fast.
He was nervous.
Right, like he wanted to get it over with.
Get off the stage.
Exactly. And so he was just, like, rushing through his material.
And people couldn't keep up.
No, and they would kind of tune out.
So he started to slow down.
He did. And he started to use pauses more effectively.
Oh. So instead of being afraid of the silence,
He embraced
it
it.
was bring on the awkward silence.
Yeah. He realized that those pauses could actually be really powerful.
How so?
Well, for one thing, they give the audience time to process what you're saying.
That's true.
Like if you're just like bombarding them with information,
They're not going to remember any of it.
no, it's just going to go in one ear and out the other.
Right.
But if you pause,
Let it sink in.
yeah, give them a moment to think about it.
It's going to have more of an impact.
Exactly.
And I think pauses can also be really good for building suspense.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like if you're telling a story
Right.
and you pause at just the right moment,
People are on the edge of their seats.
are like, what's going to happen next?
So this is interesting because it's turning something that we normally think of as negative
Awkward silence.
into something positive.
A tool.
Yeah.
A tool that you can use to your advantage.
And he also started to incorporate personal stories into his presentations.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
Why was that so important?
Well, I think people connect with stories.
We do. It's how we make sense of the world.
Right. Like if you're just giving people like dry facts and figures.
It's not going to be very memorable.
No, and it's not going to be very engaging.
So by telling stories,
You're making your presentations more relatable.
people can see themselves in your stories.
Yeah, and it makes you seem more human.
More approachable.
Exactly.
But he didn't just tell stories for the sake of telling stories.
No, he was very intentional about it.
He made sure that his stories connected back to his main points.
Right, so they weren't just like random tangents.
They were serving a purpose.
They were there to illustrate his message.
And make it more memorable.
Exactly.
And then he started doing something that I think is really scary for a lot of people.
What's that?
He started embracing audience questions.
Oh, yeah, that can be terrifying.
What if you don't know the answer?
Or what if someone asks you a really challenging question?
Or what if they challenge your whole premise?
Yeah, it can be really intimidating.
But he realized that questions are actually a good thing.
Yeah, It means that people are engaged.
They're interested,
They want to know more.
and it gives you an opportunity to connect with them on a deeper level
Right, like you're having a conversation.
instead of just lecturing at them.
Exactly.
But, he didn't just become like a perfect speaker overnight.
No, of course not.
Like, he still had awkward moments.
He did.
He still made mistakes.
But he didn't let those moments define him.
He didn't give up.
He kept
And
going.
he kept learning
And eventually he got to the point where he could speak to a room of 200 people.
and get amazing feedback.
People loved him.
And that's so cool because it shows that, like, you don't have to be perfect to be a good speaker
You just have to be willing to keep trying
and to learn from your mistakes.
and to embrace the awkward moments.
So I think that's a really important takeaway for all of us.
I agree.
It's like progress over perfection.
Exactly.
It's not about being flawless,
It's about getting better every time you speak
and it's about not being afraid to be yourself.
and to connect with your audience on a human level.
So what are some of your biggest fears or challenges when it comes to public speaking?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's forgetting what I'm going to say.
Oh, yeah, that's a common one.
Yeah, like I'll be up there and my mind will just go blank.
I've been there.
And it's just like the worst feeling.
It's terrifying.
What about you?
I think for me, it's more about like saying the wrong thing,
Totally.
like putting my foot in my mouth.
Or like offending someone.
Yeah, or just like coming across as like incompetent.
I get that.
So do you have any tips for how to overcome those fears?
Well, one thing that's really helped me is keeping a speaker's journal.
What's that?
It's basically just a notebook where you write down your thoughts and feelings after each presentation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you can like track your progress.
And see what's working and what's not working.
Exactly. And it can also be helpful to just like get your thoughts out of your head.
Like processing what happened.
So if you're feeling really anxious about an upcoming presentation,
You can look back at your journal and see like,
I've done this before.
and I survived.
And I even did pretty well.
So it's like a way to build your confidence.
Exactly.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it's been really helpful for me.
So maybe the real key to becoming a more confident speaker
Is to embrace the awkward moments.
and to realize that like everyone makes mistakes.
Even the best speakers in the world.
So what if the most captivating speakers are the ones who can turn a stumble into a moment of shared humanity with their audience?
That's a great question. And you know what? I think you're right.
Like we're all human.
We all make mistakes
And it's those imperfections
that make us relatable.
and that make us interesting
So don't be afraid to be yourself,
and to let your personality shine through.
because that's what's going to make you a truly engaging speaker.
On that note,
Go forth and speak.
thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
And remember, progress over perfection.
See you next time.